What did your crush do that made you lose interest in them? Story 1. We talked about exes. She mentioned how she should have cheated on him because he was boring to be with. Yeah, I'm out. Story 2. This might sound dumb, but I was dating someone briefly several years ago that I had a red flag moment and walked away. We'd only gone on a few dates and hadn't become intimate yet. He came to my house when I had just bought my first car, and he sat on the hood. I asked him not to do that, and he just laughed. After a few more times asking him and him blatantly ignoring me and mocking me, I dropped him. If he couldn't even manage respecting such a small boundary, I wasn't interested in giving him the chance not to respect others. I have to say, if there's one thing I've learned in relationships, it's that you really need to watch out for people who push boundaries. It takes a few forms. Saying that even though they recognize the reasons for your boundary, they should be an exception because they're different. All that says to me is that they don't understand why I have that boundary and value their own wants or needs over my comfort. Slipping up and violating stated boundaries repeatedly, it shows they have poor impulse control or just really care more about their own needs. Pouting when you set boundaries or punishing you by withholding affection, blaming you for ruining the mood or situation when you remind them that they're violating a previously voiced boundary. A lot of these are common in relationships when you're younger, but it's important to make the importance of respecting boundaries clear early on for both yourself and your partner. If you get your boundaries trampled, you'll end up unhappy and resentful. When they get away with it, they'll learn that their behavior is acceptable if they can figure out a way to manipulate you into accepting it. That means they don't grow as a person. Story 3. I figured out he was dating me and 2 other girls and playing us against each other. One night at a party, one of the girls wanted to fight. Honestly, I was drunk and tired and was getting in my friend's car to leave when she tried to start a fight with me over him. I just said, "Tell your friends we got in a fight and you won. Also, you can have him." I got in the car and went home to bed. That was the day I decided I would never fight over a guy. If he wants to be with me, he will be with me. Story 4. He was rude and dismissive to my little brother. I know little brothers can be annoying, but he wasn't being nosy or disrespectful. He just wanted to know if my crush liked video games. I'm also really close to my siblings and want them to be included. The next boyfriend I had, and my husband now, spent hours teaching my little brother to play old school StarCraft, and to this day, 6 years later, they still play video games together at least once a week. Upgrades, people, upgrades! Story 8. I noticed an attractive woman a few times at a local hangout spot. One evening, we struck up a conversation. This led to a series of casual hookups. We'd usually meet somewhere, which kept it light and casual. One night, she invites me to her place. Pretty quickly, I realized that this was the home of a married couple. Couple pictures everywhere. I asked if she was married, and she said yes. But it was okay because he was out of town on a fishing trip. Now, I'm not a saint, but it really bothered me because I didn't consent to having an affair with a married woman. I noped out of there and didn't look back. Story 11. We had made plans for Halloween. We were supposed to go to a club and meet some friends. She ended up saying she was sick and stayed home. About a week later, I'm going to drop her off at her house, and she told me what she really did on Halloween. She went to a different club with her friends, not ours. There was plenty of other issues in the relationship, but that one truth was what made me snap. I just dropped her off without saying anything, and a few days later, broke up with her. I don't even think she cheated, just too much lying and manipulation. Story 12. We had been going out for a few weeks, and on the way home from a party, we went to go get McDonald's and he paid for me. I have an allergy and they got my order wrong. I asked and it wasn't a problem. They made me a new burger and told me to keep the incorrect one as they couldn't resell it. I offered it to him, he didn't want it, so I said I would just bring it home and give it to my housemate so it wouldn't go to waste. He was completely fine with this. Then, a homeless guy came in and started asking at the tables for change. I offered him the burger and he took it. Then my date went crazy at me for giving away the burger that he had paid for, even though he was okay with me giving it to my housemate, and followed the homeless man, shouting at him to give it back, then got the guy kicked out of the restaurant. It was terrifying. He went from easygoing and charming to furious in a split second. Then, when he sat down again, he acted like everything was normal and asked me if I wanted to go home with him. It was a side of him I hadn't seen before. I'm glad he showed his true colors so early. Story 13. I loved my high school girlfriend, and when we broke up in grade 12, I've always missed her. 7 years later, I messaged her to say happy birthday and that I hope she was well. Her reply was, "Thank you. I had finally gotten away from an abusive guy, but now I gotta live in a shelter." My idiot self said, "I have a spare bedroom. Come stay with me until you save up and get on your feet." Turns out she was a very intense alcoholic and squatted at my place for 2.5 years, smoking poppers and drinking with no initiative for anything. And that was before she decided to have a bath, started the water, then passed out drunk while I was at work. My apartment floor was severely flooded. I got evicted, and now I'm living with my parents. My lease agreement was $1,200 a month for a 3-bedroom apartment with all utilities included in Toronto. I'll never get that ever again. Story 14. Moved in with her over the summer break and realized that we had nothing in common. No common interests or hobbies, and our lifestyles were completely different, and realized that except for flirting and schoolwork, we really had nothing to talk about. Story 15. Started seeing a girl somewhat recently that works in the same industry as I do, and hadn't dated in some time. Initially, there were no red flags at all, and things were going great. Felt like everything in life was breaking my way for once. Fast forward to a few months later, and completely out of nowhere, she accuses me of hacking into her devices. She then thinks that a speaker I gave her when I was cleaning out some of my old stuff was listening in on her. I realize she has some serious paranoid delusions and mental health issues. I take this into account and choose to still be friends with her because I know she needs some good people in her life. I know she can't help the way she is, and I really don't want to just cut her off because of mental health issues she can't control. But fast forward to a few days ago, and I get a call from the local police that she reported me for stalking, breaking and entering, and cyber harassment. I have literally not been to her apartment in several weeks at this point, so I explain the situation to the officer that called me and tell them that she needs to seek some mental health treatment. I haven't made an attempt to contact her since, and will be filing a restraining order against her if she continues to try and disrupt my life. I hope she gets the help she needs, but when you're dealing with someone who is legit crazy and that doesn't have a solid support network, that is usually not the case. Story 16. She mentioned her last name, and I recognized it. It's probably a good thing. Found out her grandmother was my grandfather's older sister. It worked out okay. We were on a double date sort of deal with her friend and my friend. We found out pretty early in the night. We literally laughed our butts off for 15 minutes, making incest jokes and traded dates. I ended up dating her friend for about 4 years. Story 17. She was one of the hottest girls in my high school, and somehow she started liking a dweeb like me. She was a lifeguard at a pool, and I visited her to chat and chill while she worked. Then, while we were having a more open and comfortable chat rather than school stuff, she says, "It was good that black people were enslaved. We taught them civility and gave them food and shelter instead of living in Saharan tribes. They owe us." Stopped talking to her from then on. Story 18. She was very attractive, but hated cats. Not allergic to them, but just couldn't tolerate being around them. The ultimatum she gave me was that if we were ever to live together, I'd have to give up my wonderful cat and devote my entire attention to her. I said, in that case, she should move on with her life, because my furry friend will remain. Story 19. My crush back in 8th grade asked why I don't just murder people since I don't share her Christian morals, as I had recently told her I was an atheist. I stammered out that mortality isn't tied to church, and then I looked at her and saw the intense hatred in her eyes. The face was the ugliest face I had ever seen, and that moment cleared up any misconceptions I had about that particular person. Story 20. Turns out she had absolutely no filter. She took pride in saying what was on her mind, which was kind of cute at first, until I realized that she literally meant it. Every thought in her head spewed out of her mouth no matter who could hear it. Not a day went by where she didn't get into an argument with someone over some insensitive or insulting comment that she made. She was the female embodiment of Larry David in Curb Your Enthusiasm. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video.